The Prime Minister is under pressure to order a Hillsborough-style inquiry into a scandal involving contaminated blood in the NHS. The scandal relating to a number of haemophiliacs who died from hepatitis C and AIDS-related illnesses after receiving contaminated blood products from the health service in the 1970s and 80s. Well, joining us live is Courtney, Policy and Public Affairs Manager at the Haemophilia Society. Many thanks indeed for joining us this afternoon. So could this be a scandal of unprecedented proportions?
Yes, I think this is a huge scandal that has been going on for a number of decades. It started back in the 1970s when a new product for people with haemophilia and other bleeding disorders came on the market. And this product was used by pooling blood plasma together, and that then led to a small number of viruses and from donors then leading to those products becoming contaminated with HIV and hepatitis C and other hepatitis viruses. Over the time since then, nearly 2,500 people have died as a result of either AIDS-related illnesses or from the hepatitis, and there are still over 2,500 people living with diseases to this day who have not been properly compensated by government. So
Jeff, if almost 2,500 people have died, almost 2,500 people are still living. This has been going on since the 1970s and 80s. Successive governments have failed to address this issue. Why is it taking so long for it to come to a head like it is now?
So there has been evidence that's been available. The Haemophilia Society, other campaigners have presented that evidence to government, to MPs. There was a private inquiry led by Lord Archer, and then there was a public inquiry in Scotland led by Lord Penrose. But neither of those inquiries had the ability to require evidence to be provided by the government, to take evidence for witnesses under oath. And in the case of the Penrose inquiry, it applied to Scotland rather than the whole of the UK. Those inquiries did not have the full powers they needed to show what really happened in the scandal.
The Mayor for Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, says that he has evidence that he is prepared to take to the police. Presumably you'd welcome Mr Burnham doing that?
We would welcome taking that evidence to the police. However, we feel that the inquiry would allow the systemic issues to be more clearly seen, and that's Andy Burnham's argument as well, that by looking at individual cases you can see criminal acts, you can see cover-up, but by looking at the whole situation, that's what we'll see how our community was so devastated by these products, and then how subsequently there was further cover-up what happened in terms of their diagnoses not being fully communicated to them. Some people went on to then infect partners with viruses, and that could have been avoided. And that's what's therefore why we'd like to see an inquiry that will show the full picture of what happened to our community.
And in terms of showing the full picture, I mean, this will have to be multi-layered, wouldn't it? Because I'm presuming there's not one single party that you'd be able to point the finger at. I mean, would this be failures on all levels of government and authority?
Yes, so it starts with the pharmaceutical companies themselves, who were producing products that were risky, and they didn't communicate those risks properly to patients receiving those treatments. There's the question of the government, who were once also looking at these products and were licensing them for use within the UK. There are questions around British self-sufficiency in blood products, which didn't occur as it should have in the 70s, and therefore led to more dangerous product being imported from the United States. And then finally there will be the doctors themselves, and there were questions to be raised about the nature of the doctor-patient relationship. Should doctors have been informing their patients of the risks that they knew that these products had?
So Jeff, we're now calling for, or we're now hearing reports of calls for a Hillsborough-style inquiry to find out exactly what took place, who is responsible. Should the inquiry rule in favour of these 2,500 people who have lost their lives and those who are still living, what would you expect to happen moving forward?
If the government is shown to be negligent, if public bodies made decisions that were potentially criminal, if there were criminal acts by other public bodies such as the NHS and licensing authorities, then we would expect that our members would be paid compensation. Similarly, in other countries such as Ireland and Canada, there was compensation paid to victims. In other countries, there were criminal prosecutions as a result. For example, in France, that's what would likely happen if that evidence was shown to be the evidence that we have seen, that was fully considered. That is the likely outcome.
Courtney, appreciate the time, you taking the time to talk to us this afternoon. Thank you.